I'm sure we all had a dream Pokemon team when we were growing up. For most people, you probably had a team constructed around whichever region you grew up watching in the anime and playing in the games. I can still remember imagining myself going on my Pokemon journey through the Sinnoh region and the exact team I always wanted. One big flaw with these childhood fantasies, however, is that most of us, me especially, chose our dream team based off which Pokemon looked the coolest to us. The game I played the most was Pokemon Pearl, and I remember always wanting to get my dream team, but since I was young and didn't really understand how to get most of the Pokemon I really wanted, I always could only really construct half of the team or so. But with the most recent remakes, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and my fully developed adult brain, I finally was able to live out my dream and fully build my dream team. However, once I actually got this team constructed, I realized that it had some serious flaws that my adolescent brain just never even thought about. In my mind, when I was a kid, if I had this team, I would be basically untouchable and be able to beat all my friends. Not that I had any. Now that I've gotten older, I'm not so sure that was true. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down and analyzing my childhood dream team to the best of my ability. I do want to preface this by saying though that I am not a Pokemon expert by any means. If I'm being honest, I'm just someone who enjoys playing the game, and I wanted to share my thoughts with my subscribers. I also would really love to hear all of you guys' childhood dream teams, so make sure you guys comment them down below. And if you enjoy the video and want to see more Pokemon content, then be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. So before we get into the first Pokemon, I want to lay out the team so I can better explain each Pokemon's flaws within the team. The team consists of Metagross, Infernape, Garchomp, Lucario, Salamence, and last but certainly not least, Palkia. Now, on paper this team sounds pretty stacked, and truthfully it is, but it does have its flaws. Now, without any further ado, let's get into our first member of the team. So for the first Pokemon in the lineup, we have Metagross. I loved Metagross growing up. I always thought he was super cool, and even until this day I still remember seeing Steven use him in the Masters 8 tournament against Ash and falling in love with it. Metagross himself is a very good Pokemon and makes a great addition to just about any team. In my BDSP party, I primarily used him as a Stealth Rock Pokemon, but I also used him to deal with Ice-type Pokemon that Garchomp and Salamence were weak against. I feel as if I didn't really get the full potential out of him though, if I'm being honest. I never really got a great moveset for him, and I feel like I kinda hindered my experience myself with him a lot. I just kinda got him too late in the game to really set him up the way I fully intended to. The biggest issue with Metagross for me, however, was the fact that his weakness to fire and ground overlapped with Lucario's weaknesses to both of those, and Infernape's weakness to ground as well. Therefore, making fire and ground both very effective methods to beating this party. This is actually one of the reasons why I struggled with Bertha of the Elite Four. She primarily uses ground Pokemon, including the fact that the rest of my party doesn't really have great coverage for ground either. This made for a very tough battle. But that's about enough of Metagross. Let's get into the next member of the party, Lucario. So just like Metagross, Lucario was a Pokemon that I've loved since I was a kid. I would even go as far as to say that Lucario is probably my favorite Pokemon. However, my love for Lucario runs deeper than just a few episodes in the anime. I remember watching the Pokemon movies, The Rise of Darkrai and Lucario and the Mystery Mew, and being absolutely fascinated with it. Then, after both of these movies, he showed up in the Super Smash Bros. Game for the Wii, and immediately he became my main character of choice. Not to mention the fact that my favorite champion, Cynthia, uses one as well, so it's pretty easy to see why I love him so much and why he was a part of my dream party. But even with my bias towards Lucario, I can't deny his downfalls as part of this team. As previously mentioned, him and Metagross have the overlapping weaknesses of ground and fire, and he also shares the weakness of ground with Infernape. Unfortunately, he also has the lowest total base stats of all the Pokemon on the team, with it being 525, which is still solid, so it's not really a huge deal. If I'm being honest, him and Metagross just don't fit too well in the party together, and realistically, one of the two should probably go, that way there could be an ice or ground counter Pokemon. But that's enough on Lucario. Let's move on to the next member of the team, Salamence. So Salamence, just like every other Pokemon in the party pretty much, is another Pokemon that I really liked as a kid. But if I'm being honest, there isn't a specific memory that I have with him that made me like him. I honestly think I just thought that he looked cool as a kid, and I had a vision of building an all-dragon party, and he just kind of fit in. Before we get into the disadvantages he provides in the team, I want to point out one big thing that Salamence does have going for him, and that's the fact that he is the only flying type in the party. The flying type makes him the only super effective attacker I have against fighting types, so that's definitely a big advantage for him. But if I'm being honest, I could get super effective damage against fighting types from Metagross if he had the right move pool. One other thing that Salamence has going for him is that he nullifies ground moves, so this really helps cover for Infernape, Metagross, and Lucario. The main disadvantage to Salamence in this team is that he is a dragon type just like Palkia and Garchomp. This means that these three Pokemon all have 3 of the same weaknesses, 4 times to Ice and 2 times to Dragon and Fairy. This obviously causes some major issues when dealing with any Ice type Pokemon at all. This is the reason why Candace, the Ice type Gym Leader's rematch team, would really give this team a decent run for its money. Salamence has amazing stats though, having a base stat total of 600, but his defenses aren't very high, so one fast Ice type Pokemon and he could be easily defeated. Let's move on to the 4th member of our party though, Garchomp. I think it's pretty obvious why Garchomp is on this team. I've already said that Cynthia is my favorite champion in Pokemon and Garchomp is her ace, so naturally I'm gonna love him as well. He was just such an epic looking Pokemon to me, plus I obviously have some sort of bias towards dragon type Pokemon, so that definitely works in his favor. If I'm being completely honest, I'm trying to find a reason why Garchomp fits well with this team and I'm really struggling. I mean, he nullifies electric attack, but nobody in the party is weak to electricity, so it's not really something that's needed. He's also a ground type, but doesn't have any resistance to ground type moves, so honestly, Salamence makes for a better counter Pokemon for ground types. I mean, Garchomp is an extremely fast and strong physical attacker, and I make use of him knowing Dig a lot. But if I'm being honest, those few advantages don't really outweigh the disadvantage of him matching 2 other members' weaknesses. Upon further inspection, maybe it's Garchomp that should be replaced from the party. But I'll let you guys give your opinion on that in the comment section. For now, let's move on to our next Pokemon. Now I know you probably figured I would save the legendary Pokemon in the party for last, but I wanted to go ahead and cover it since we've already discussed the other 2 Pokemon it shares overlapping disadvantages with. Palkia is the cover legendary Pokemon for my favorite Pokemon generation of all time, and although Platinum was a better game, I still spent more time playing Pearl than any other game. This was due in part to the fact that my Pokemon Platinum got stolen along with my limited edition Pokemon Diamond and Pearl DS Lite. I still get sad when I think about it to this day. So naturally, I would have love for Palkia. Palkia, although sharing the weaknesses of Dragon and Fairy with Garchomp and Salamence, more than deserves its spot on the team. I mean, come on, it's a legendary Pokemon, not to mention it's our only water type as well, which makes it an amazing help for taking out opposing fire and ground types. Palkia boasts a 680 base stat total with 150 special attack. Of course, Palkia deserves its spot in the party. It's a legendary Pokemon. It's supposed to be better than all the others. Now let's move into our 6th and final Pokemon. This is actually the one that I would maybe consider my ace. This Pokemon actually wasn't one that I had love for as a kid. As a matter of fact, Infernape wasn't in my final party's vision when I started BDSP. I actually originally had Magmortar in mind as a fire type. Growing up, I actually liked all 3 of the Sinnoh starters, but in my original Pearl playthrough, I chose Piplup. However, as I played through BDSP, I grew really attached to Infernape and realized that he was actually an amazing Pokemon. He was with me throughout my entire Sinnoh journey, and for that reason, once I got to the end of the game, I just couldn't see a world where he wasn't in my final party. This actually proves to be an amazing addition as well, and that's why I chose to talk about Infernape last. Infernape covers my party's biggest weakness, Ice. And while he's certainly not perfect, he is very much a necessity when it comes to this team. Without Infernape, beating the Ice Gym Leader Candace would probably be completely impossible without drastically overleveling. Instead, Infernape is actually able to sweep through the entire gym most of the times. Infernape is the key ingredient to making this party usable and not completely useless whenever an Ice-type Pokemon comes out. So now we've gone through each Pokemon on the team, it's time to answer the big question. Is my childhood dream team as good as I thought it would be? And the answer to that question is... unfortunately, no. But that doesn't mean that it's not good. As a kid, I thought this team was unbeatable, and of course it doesn't live up to that standard, but that doesn't mean it's a bad team. The team of course has its weaknesses, however, most of the weaknesses are covered up. And as much as it pains me to say it, I think that if I was going to have to replace any member of the team, it would have to be Garchomp. Coming into this video, I figured my choice for being replaced would have either been Lucario or Salamence, but upon further inspection, it actually seems that Garchomp seems to serve the least purpose on the team. So I want your guys' opinion on this. If I was to replace Garchomp, who should I replace him with? Or maybe you think that I made a mistake or missed something and that it should be another Pokemon that should be replaced, in which case I want to hear that in the comments as well. Also, don't forget to leave me your childhood dream team in the comment section below. Who knows, I may even do a video on that. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon and other RPG content as well, and I'll see you guys all next time. Peace.